Hi, I'm Steve Malkin, and welcome to Zero Carbon Champions. This is our opportunity to interview business leaders around the UK and indeed the world, and to discuss how and why they are cutting carbon emissions and setting net zero carbon targets. It's all part of our Zero Carbon Tour, and their encouragement and inspiration, we hope, for other organisations to set credible net zero carbon targets in time for COP26 and way beyond. And today I'm joined by Mark Bird, a great friend of ours at the Planet Mark. Mark is from Childbase Partnership, where he is the Health, Safety and Environment Director. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. We're looking forward to having a chat. What we'd like to do is launch straight away into our sort of first question, which is that setting net zero carbon targets and cutting carbon emissions is really important. Whereabouts is Childbase Partnership on that journey?
So we are very far along. I think we set a net zero by 2030 target in our financial year 2018-19. So we're now obviously headlong into that, and we're starting our first big investments of LED lighting across the business, £170,000 worth of lighting this financial year, and around half that in the following financial year. So we've made some great big early strides into that area, and also we recently became a carbon neutral company with approved UN offsets. So we're trying to attack it at both ends, if you want, both that what's happening now as well as what we have done as the most ethical approach.
So you've set a great target. You've set some deadlines for that target already. Deploying initiatives. What do you think is the sort of the biggest and most impactful initiative that you guys have deployed so far?
So the biggest thing in terms of stakeholder engagement and impact would be working with all of our customers and all of our employees. So we've done a series of surveys backed up by guidance and signposting for sustainable travel. Obviously, we've discovered via our 0 by 30 program we had a large volume of our emissions comes from the customers and from the employees, sometimes unavoidably, but sometimes avoidably. So we've set about providing these with what their carbon footprint looks like just in terms of their own travel based on their survey responses, and then providing information via insights from that to help them move towards a more sustainable travel choice, for example, walking in or buses or bikes or some combination thereof. And this will also be followed up with subsequent surveys so we can in theory track the response rate and how good people are being in terms of their sustainable travel choices, every couple of months throughout. So we hope that kind of momentum for the next 7 or 8 years of until 2030 will see us really sort of reduce that sort of impact as much as possible.
Really fascinating. Thanks for that, because these sort of famous or infamous sort of scope 3 carbon emissions in your supply chain or downstream in terms of your customer base. So it's really great to see that you understand the impact of those and actually taking these great steps to improve them. What do you think, Mark, is the sort of the biggest challenge that you faced?
The biggest challenge, I think currently the biggest challenge is the lack of, I guess, support centrally from, say, government in terms of investment in sustainable initiatives or grants or incentives, those sort of areas. A lot of our 0 by 30 sort of investment was based around things like RHI, renewable heat incentive, and obviously that wound up, and the replacement is significantly less good. So we're in a situation where we're having to look at that, the economics of it. I've still got strong buy-in, so it's still very much something we want to do, but it does perhaps shift some of the returns on investments to a longer payback rather than as quick as it would have been through RHI.
That makes a lot of sense. So there could be, looking for more support centrally and even locally through local government that might help organisations do more. In terms of that commitment you spoke about from the company. What do you think the business benefits are? What are the ones that you've identified? The top one or two business benefits you think of setting a net zero target?
Yeah, I don't think of it in sort of naked business terms. It's not really my wheelhouse. However, the advantage is being seen in terms of customers wanting companies to be doing what is seen as the right thing within the climate crisis. It's very much in the news currently, and as well as just generally speaking. That is coming to us regardless. I very much so, as the current group of younger people have children, they're going to want to put their money where that money's been invested in, not contributing to climate change. So the longer you've been doing it, and the harder you've been going at it, the more viable you are as a company on that playing field. So I don't see it as being harsh and competitive like that, but that is somewhat a reality of that. In terms of other challenges, in terms of
other benefits to the business. I was going to ask you actually, Mark, and I think that's a really good point, is that we're hearing that there's multiple benefits about cost saving and the ability to attract and retain employees and so on. But you run so many nursery schools across the vast area of the UK. One of the major, is that a major part of you looking to that future? You're educating our future generations, and is that a major sort of point about where you set a net zero target?
Yeah, that's a big motivator of mine. So the reason I kind of moved into the field was, I've got two young children, they're 4 and 1. I want them to have the same future opportunities that I've had, free of having to worry about flooding, fire and pestilence. So all of these things are, I think that's ultimately got to be in the back of everybody's mind, from, government through to people on the street, that you've got to be trying to leave the planet in a as good as place as it is for you when you were that age, ideally better than. So that, from a business perspective, filters into our partnership with Eco Schools England. With all our nurseries are now green flag holders. Many have got double green flags. They've gone back now from 2016 onwards. So we're at the forefront of that within the earlier sector. The benefits are economical as well. They ultimately better, more efficient heating systems and lighting is cheaper. It's not rocket science. LEDs are cheaper than fluorescent bulbs. So economically, even if you just ignored all the environment stuff, it's just better business regardless. It's obviously just trying to get through the initial investment phase to see that kind of logic. But I guess that's one of the things that sustainable work is having to try and push within business, is that you need to think beyond a 3-year plan, a 1-year plan, a 2-year plan. It's got to be thinking 10 years. You've got to look at these kind of investments more drawn out, and what value that will transmit back into the business as you move along.
You took a very bold step, Mark, at Childbase to sort of commit to a net zero carbon target. If you gave one piece of advice to other organisations looking to join the UN-backed race to zero, as you've done, and commit to a credible net zero target, what one piece of advice would you give to them in terms of starting out on that journey?
Yeah, for me is just jump in. Don't wait for you to have your perfect data sets and everything to be measured and cognizant of everything that's going on in your business. I think the best thing to do is actually to jump in now, and then allow the sort of message and the target setting to then drag the rest of the bits and pieces along on the journey with you. We're not perfect, and I challenge anybody in that space to be perfect. Everything is moving along, and we're trying to make everything more transparent and more legitimate and more available in terms of things like utility reporting. So you shouldn't see the scope of it as a challenge as to not do it in the first place. And my advice is just do it. and then sort it out later. I think it's Richard Branson has a quote to that effect, doesn't he? So say yes and then work out how to do it later.
Well, I think, we follow your sentiment, don't want to let perfection get in the way of progress, maybe, and that, there is some urgency here, and there's a great role for organisations to play. Maybe we could just leave on a point, about that we're working together, aren't we, to create a brighter future. What's your view of a brighter future, 10 years out, post 2030?
Oh, wow. Well, I really hope that in 2030 we've seen years, hopefully, at that point, of sustained carbon reduction in the atmosphere, so that the world in 2030, at which point my son will be 14-ish and my daughter will be 10, and the sort of climate issues that we're seeing have abated. Obviously, there's a certain amount baked in. That's already been emitted, so there's some damage that is unavoidable, but hopefully we'll start to see that come back. And even if 2030 ends up being similar to 2015 in terms of its carbon, it'll be a sort of better place, and that's ultimately what the point is returning it to or maintaining it at a good place without any concerns around food scarcity or rising waters or fires and whatnot.
Well, like you, Mark, I think that, we feel it's very much in our hands. We're super excited to work with Childbase. It's always been a pleasure. We love the level of ambition. We love the opportunity to work with you and supporting the education of our future generations, and doing it in a way we're enhancing our sort of impacts on society and the environment, and leaving, everybody, but in particular, our next generations, with a healthy, clean, happier planet. Thank you so much for being a guest on our Zero Carbon Champions interviews. We hope that the wise words that you provided and the practical steps you can offer that we've offered here will inspire others to take that piece of advice that you gave to leap in and get cracking and get started, set a net zero carbon target. You can see and hear more on zerocarbontour.com, our website, which is where we're providing free advice and inspiration. We hope for other organisations to join the race to zero and set net zero carbon targets. Thank you so much to Mark Bird from Childbase for joining us today. I'm Steve Malkin, CEO and founder of the Planet Mark, signing off, and I hope you will join us again for another one of our sessions with our Zero Carbon Champions. Thanks ever so much, and see you soon.